Last time we wrote an upper melody to go with this figured bass. Now we're going to fill in the inner parts. Remember, our doubling and omission rules will basically try and double what's most stable inside a chord. If we have to omit something, the chordal fifth, we can omit. So we'll start out here. We've got some of the Roman numerals. Let's fill in a couple more in case we need to reference them. You can always think purely from the figures and the bass line. We had talked about how this is root position 5-3 implied here. You could just work up and say, okay, I need a third and a fifth above the bass. What you get is a 1 chord. I'll fill in these two, even though it's true. You could work either way, from the Roman numerals or from the figure bass. Okay, so inner parts. I need a 5 and a 3 here. A raised 3, that's given. So what I'm missing, I've got F sharp, A sharp. I need a C sharp. So let's see, where should we put that? I'm going to double my bass note. At scale degree 5, I can double it and make it even more stable sounding. Okay, and then I've put in the fifth above the bass right here. Now I've got a complete chord. This will not change the chord. It'll just add it won't change the Roman numeral. It'll just add the chordal seventh in the bass. That's resolved for us. So both of these two resolutions are taken care of. Remember, those are the two biggies. We want the leading tone to resolve. We want the chordal seventh to resolve. Both those are done. Those are our two main tendency tones to watch for. Now we're on a tonic chord, so we're going to need this. Now again, you can think of it like this, as a third and a sixth above the bass, and get those notes. Or you can think of it as a 1 chord and go B, D, F, F sharp. Okay, we've got our B, we need a D, now we need an F sharp somewhere. Smooth voice leading in the inner parts. By that I mean move as little as possible. If you can keep a note from the previous chord, do it. I can keep that F sharp and fill in the chord. Now we need to double something. And anything, you can really double anything you like in a 6-3 position chord, as long as it's not a tendency tone. So we're very free at this point to do whatever we like. I'll go to this B, I'll double the root. I could equally well have gone up and double the bass note. That works fine too. In fact, maybe we just want to keep them both there as potentials. I'm thinking of doing this note, B, but let's see what happens next, and we'll work backwards a little bit. Okay, so here we need a 6 raised. That's what that line through it means. That means we're going to need this note, A sharp. That's the leading tone. So as soon as we write it, when we decide where we want that note, let's go ahead and resolve it right off. It looks like the best place to put that, I could leap up here, but if I choose the B, I can go to this A sharp here. So let me go ahead and settle on that B then. And I'll have very smooth voice leading, all stepwise motion in the tenor part. Okay, that takes care of that. I need a 4th above the bass, F sharp, and a 3rd E. There's E. So I need to take care of this 4. All right, well that's up a 4th is F sharp. I can keep it. All right, great. I've got very smooth voice leading. And the altos might revolt, but the tenors will be happy. They're moving by step. Remember, we need to resolve some things. This one's done for us. That's the chordal seventh, resolving down by step. Here's the leading tone. It needs to resolve as well. Take it up. Great, now we just need to fill in the chord. Well, it's a 1 chord, root position, 5-3, so I need B, D, F sharp. I got a couple B's. There's a D. Let's fill out the chord with that F sharp. Okay, that's going to get pretty boring, so we'll try and move away from that F sharp as soon as we can in the altos. Next chord, 6 and 5. There's my 5, there's my 6 on the bass. Implied is the 3. So we'll need all of those guys right there. F sharp, I need it. It, by the way, is the root. instead of putting it here, let's try moving it down here and just see what happens with that. Okay, F sharp. See, we need an E flat. That's our one missing thing. E natural. Okay, some tendency tones to resolve. This needs to go up. Where's my chordal seventh? That's the other thing. F, A sharp, C sharp, E. There it is. Chordal sevenths go how? Down by step. Go ahead and write that in automatically, even before we know what the chord is. We can just resolve these two things right away. We are going to a one chord. B, D, F sharp. We've got our B, a couple Ds. Now you might say, now wait a minute. That's a third above the bass. That's a third above the bass. I'm doubling something that I don't want to. That's true. In this case, though, I do really like this melody. So the real question is, does the resolution of this chordal seventh take precedence or the doubling that I'd like? You'd want to avoid, generally, doubling a third above the bass in a root position chord, especially. So which one wins out? And in this sort of situation, the voice, the resolution of this tendency tone needs to take precedence. So doubling is down here as a low level rule, a principle that isn't going to need to be done if something else is in conflict with it. So in this case, we're going to make sure to resolve this. We like the melody, we'll keep that melody, it's got a nice shape. And so in this one place here, we will have a double third above the bass. The chordal third is doubled. Either way you want to think about it. I'm running off two different ways of thinking about this. Intervals above the bass and intervals from a root. In this case, it's the same thing. A third above the bass note, D is also the chordal third. All right. Always get the tendency tones to resolve. That's first priority. Now we have this new chord. We need a third and a sixth above the bass, or you can think of it as a four chord. E, G, B. Let's see what we've got. We've got our E, we've got our G, we're missing the B, so where would it fit best? I'm going to, instead of putting it down here, I'm going to put it there in the tenor part. The reason is that the spacing is getting huge here, and I prefer to have all three of the upper parts, the soprano, the alto, and the tenor, all within an octave or so of the adjacent voice. So if my sopranos and altos get over an octave, I start to say, oh, I want to try and bring that back in to the span of an octave. If the alto to the tenor gets bigger than an octave, I want to quickly try and pull it back in. So my preference is to try and keep any pair of those upper voices within an octave of the adjacent voice. That's not true of the bass. The bass can be way below. And so lots of space between tenor and bass is just fine. So look at how big this is. I'm getting quite a bit away if I were to do the B. I'm getting over an octave by quite a bit. So let's move up in the tenor to that B. All right, what shall we double? 6/3 position chord, we can double anything we like, unless it's a tendency tone. Okay, so what about that? That'd be doubling the root. See the problem with that? These guys are moving together by octaves, parallel motion, parallel octaves. Okay, so I don't want to do that. Oh, I could jump up to here. E didn't work, so how about G? Yeah, that will be okay. What about this? These guys are moving in parallel with one another. Well, look at the interval. Here's a 6, so that's not a problem at all. So let's go with that. It's true, we've got quite a bit of motion that's not smooth, but we're doing this in order to keep the register of this alto part close to the soprano. Okay, and now we have 1/6. In other words, a third above the bass and a sixth above the bass. Let's see what we've got. I'll work from the root. B we're missing. So let's get that in there. I can keep that B that I've already got in the tenor. Smooth voice leading again. B, D, F sharp. Okay, I've got those two, so now it's just a matter of what do I want to double. And I can double anything in that chord that we like. Let's see, we could go here, we could go there, roll it there. All these are possible. Smooth voice leading, and another reason will make me want to choose the F sharp. Here's the main thing. We're leaping up, and we'd like, after a leap, especially a big leap, we'd like to turn and go the opposite direction by step. This is called the law of recovery. It basically says the larger the leap, the more likely it is that we'll step in the opposite direction following that. What that means for us is that if we have a large leap, we'll want to follow it by a step in the opposite direction. This isn't a huge leap, but it's pretty big. So fourth up will be followed by a step in the opposite direction. F sharp, instead of all those other choices, which are all potential, but don't make as good a voice leading. Okay, now we're almost ready to close out here. We're going to move from our 5 to our 1. See, we've got a couple F sharps. We need an A sharp. We're gonna need an octave up there, moving to a seventh above the bass. Let's get the leading tone in there first. A sharp. And we're gonna resolve it here. Remember, we also have this possibility that if you've got an inner voice leading tone, you can take it down a third. Either one of these is possible. F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. We'd like to fill in the chord if we can, but we don't have to. We can omit the fifth. There's our motion. That's taken care of. Could do that for really smooth voice leading. We could also go up here and fill out the chord. Those are both possible. Both good. By the way, I like the fact that I left and then eventually came down by step here. That's following the law of recovery in that voice as well. So I'm going to stick with that leading tone, keeping it in the tenor. All right, so if we were to just stay on F sharp, we'd have a need for a third. So let's see what we've got the third, there it is. B, D, F sharp. Okay, so we'd be either doubling the root or the fifth. Either one is fine. If we went up here, we'd be going here to another. Okay, if we did this, we have a big leap and we'd want to follow it by a step down and we'd end up with B there. We wouldn't have this. And then we'd want to use our F sharp. Both of these scenarios is fine. It's quite a bit of space though. Maybe I'll go with the other one instead. So I'll just keep this there and bring this here. Okay, so what we're doing is we're choosing this scenario with our leading tone going up, so we end up doubling the B's, the B, the root of the chord, the bass note. We're filling in the chord with that F sharp, so that we've got a complete triad, B, D, and F sharp.